Hey viewers, it's me, Brian JT Watts here with another episode of Come Together. Today we'll be talking to my old friend Garry Graham. He has a lot to say to you about mental health and all things that have to do with grief and, just to show us what it's about to be. Hey viewers, it's Brian JT Watts here again with another episode of Come Together. Today I'll be talking to an old friend, Garry Graham, and he is a self-made businessman who is running his own mental health business. So he'll have a lot to say to us. After the opening, we'll be right back with Garry Graham.
This is the greatest game of telephone that has ever been played. Someone said the black man doesn't raise his kids or care for his family, and that message is still being told to everyone today. They even have us saying,
"We are not a monolith. We have various opinions and thoughts. We are much more than what we are portrayed to be by the media.
even when we are the victims of injustice, we are still portrayed as the perpetrators. When it comes to the black man, there is an intentional plan to discredit the past, arrest the present, and destroy the future.
Something must be done, but nothing will work until we come together.
Hi, my name is Leah Mills Chapman, and I love Black men simply because of their resilience. In a world where the odds are really stacked against them, where people tend not to understand the harsh realities of what it takes to be a Black man and living in America today, they still continue to persevere. Being married to a Black man, I see how he gets up very early in the morning. He works very hard and very diligently. He provides as best as he knows how. And even he goes the extra mile to make certain that not just the needs are taken care of, but that I have a smile, even beyond, where he takes the load off of my plate to be able to make certain that I have moments of rest. And so going through America and the hardships that they tend to place on the backs of Black men, to know that there are still good Black men out there that have good values that help to propel them and move them forward, to help them to hold on to life that continues to keep them glued and connected to love and their families, is just something that is admirable and is actually really attractive. So, yeah, I would say that that is just really my take on what stands out to me. In the Black man is the fortitude and the resilience shown daily in a world that is treating them very unkind.
Hey viewers, as promised, I am here with Garry Graham. Garry, how's it going today, man?
Good, man. Long day.
I hear you.
But we're loving it. Nice fall weather here in the Northeast.
No doubt, no doubt. It's definitely getting
Wonderful.
cool. Yeah, it's definitely cool. I was out the other morning. It was 39 degrees. I was like, wow, it's definitely not summer anymore. So that's all.
Yep. So
No doubt.
we like that. We like those fall weather between 69 and 73.
Yeah.
So I got a chance to get out of the office today and get some work done. So
Cool. Cool. That's good. That's good. Well, listen, I know our viewers want to know what's going on. So, Garry, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, what you actually do as a career.
A1, private practice and consulting. Been in private practice since 2019. Pre-pandemic for 6 months, went into the pandemic. My specialty is adolescents, boys, grief counseling, and substance abuse. And so we've been doing good. We picked up by Aetna 1199 for those in New York City, and United Health. So we've put together comprehensive insurance plans, and I'm very proud to say one of very few black therapists in the United States or in the city. So
Definitely,
that's
definitely.
really what drives it.
Cool, cool. Now, I know that especially in recent times since the pandemic, it's become even a bigger push for
Hmm.
people to take care of their mental health. What
Hmm.
do you think was the issue, especially in our community, to keep people from even dealing with their mental health on a professional level?
Information. So it is the fact that um, people of color has not taken care of their mental health as much as other people walks of life, other races. You know, we heard of the term mental health day. People stay home from work.
Right,
Um, they stay, so you need to stay outside of your sick days or manage your sick days, or as we call your PTOs.
right,
We like to save up our PTO. PTO, by the way, is paid time off.
right,
Like we won the lottery, you earn that like a paycheck.
right, right,
And then next thing you know, some people loses it. They're afraid to ask their boss for it. So misinformation that you have a right to take time off for yourself. Truly transparent. You're my friend. You
right,
know, sometimes I don't talk to you for 3 weeks.
right,
Sometimes I talk to you 3 weeks in a row.
right,
And we may not admit it. So sometimes we may drive in a car. We've done long distance trips. I say, yeah, I had a little bit too much of Brian. I'll make sure that I call him back. But those are the ebb and flows of being a human being
right.
that we have not embraced. So the number one thing is misinformation, and the information is there, and we don't ask about it.
Wow. Okay. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So you're dealing with younger men who
Mhm.
are trying to actually become probably positive men and great people in the community. What
Mhm.
is the thing that you try to impress upon them the most in order for them to be productive members of society in our community?
That they're not dumb, they're not stupid, and you can ask for help and not be ashamed of it.
Okay.
So, you're in the teaching profession, and how many kids that are smart, but they don't come for help? I mean,
Right.
something as simple as, I'll use your language, moving a decimal point. Said all you
Right.
had to do is move the decimal point. Well, I
Right.
didn't know that, but you didn't ask.
Right.
But you're ashamed that your friends would laugh at you, or
Right.
you've been called dumb all your life, and you don't want to do that. And so some of our best students they ask for help. We don't ask for any help. And we've been called out of our name. We are not allowed to be ashamed. If we make a D minus and we cry about it, we are called soft.
Right.
So all of those things has become um, detrimental to our young boys.
Right, right. Well, you definitely hit a lot on the head. I know now after the pandemic, it seems that all the students, are afraid to talk now. That's one of the issues in my classes and a lot of the classes across the school. You can go into a classroom and see a teacher teaching, and students not saying anything, and they are all not willing to talk in front of each other. And it's so crazy because even those who know they know the answer still don't want to say anything. So there are a lot of young men, especially who it seems like it's going back to the old days where it's not cool to be smart anymore, or I don't want to seem like I'm the teacher's pet, or I don't want to do this, because people are going to look at me differently. And the funny thing is, before the pandemic, for years, I used to say these kids have it so easy because it seemed like all of them were just being themselves and everybody was accepted. It was so much more acceptance than it was when I was young. There's no style that you have to wear now. When we were young, when I was in high school, I remember Lee's before I went to high school, Lee's were the big thing. And then designer jeans came out and everybody was wearing Guess and Sassoon and Jordache. And if you didn't have any of these things, you were clown. But now kids dress any way they want. They're wearing pajamas to school and Crocs and whatever, So it seems like they have it easier. But I have to also realize I'm an adult now. So to me, it all looks easy. So they still have struggles and they have a lot they're going through. And you're right, a lot of them are not expressing it to anybody. And so they need somebody to talk to. Do you think the role of guidance counselor is enough in the school, or should there be another type of counselor in schools to help these children out?
Well, I think, well, let me add on to this. I also think that society has made a lot of our youth all or none. So if you're not an actor or an actress or a sports personality, you have failed. So that has been pumped in to our kids, and they don't know. And then the next tier is, if you're not a doctor or a lawyer, that your life is not as valuable. So all of those things come into effect. So let's say, for instance, here in New York City, you decide to become a train operator,
Right.
and uh, and you're looking to make money and a good living. The train operator is a good way to go. You and I know that, or a police officer, where you have unlimited sick time.
Right.
Um, you know, some people who likes to travel. So then you should be a steward or a stewardess or a pilot.
Right.
We don't know all of those options.
Right.
It's just like, once you hit a hospital, you have made it, and it's not a stop off. So um, those things are important. But I just slipped the question that came to my mind. I'm sorry. The
Go for
question.
it. Go ahead. You good?
Yeah. So in the development of young women, especially young boys, we have to kind of build them and let them know that you don't have to do what everybody says, and you don't have to do a map. There is not a straight way to success.
Right.
Our kids also get over disciplined also.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I may make a joke with you, and somebody gets easily offended,
Right.
and they go to the teacher, and they go to a counselor. So it goes back to your question about the counseling. They may have one counselor for like 200 kids, but you may have a lot of teachers who played a role in administration to do discipline.
Right.
You're more about discipline than about counseling. There are kids that sleeps in the same bed as their siblings,
Right.
on a queen size bed.
That's right.
There are kids who become second adults because their parents are hitting second shifts to make the rent, and they can't do homework because they're cooking and cleaning and putting their younger siblings to bed.
Right.
And so if this is not and the school does not accommodate adults or young people having later classes,
Right.
or giving tutoring, or accommodating that, well, you don't have to take the first period, maybe you should come in at 10 o'clock, and you don't have to take as much this month. And COVID has a lot of parents dying, and a lot of aunts dying, and a lot of people, generational people dying, like
Right.
grandparents and fathers dying. So there's a lot going on.
It is, and I think that our school systems are getting better with that. I do see the people who communicate those things are getting better accommodations now, especially at the district I'm at now. I hadn't seen that before. I used to have students come and talk to me like, Mr. Watts, I have detention, but I can't stay after school. I got to go pick up my brother from the middle school and, my sister from the elementary school. And then I got to take them home and take care of them. And so, it was a lot. And there was a lot of kids who had a lot of responsibilities. And then when one school, high school, I used to teach at, I was an administrator, there were kids who had kids. And what was I going to say to them? They had stresses that I had never had because I didn't have any kids. And, I didn't know what they were going through. So I had to sort of bring them to somebody else and talk it out. But I think one of the issues is communication. And like you're saying, in our culture, it really has been impressed, and I don't know if it has been to other people. You can tell me it's been impressed on us to take our problems on ourselves and to deal with them. You know what I'm saying? It's it's not it's frowned upon to share your problems sometimes. I think a lot more women get to do it because they might get together and talk and this and other. But even some women don't like to share their innermost secrets, even with their friends or their problems. They don't. Nobody wants to seem like they're down. Everybody wants to seem like they're okay. Everything is status quo. I'm good. And I understand for privacy issues, but when you have close friends or people that can actually help you, or counselors or doctors or anybody who can help you out, that kind of communication needs to be put forth, and we need to take the stigma off of the times when we fall short so that we can get help. Is that something that you're expressing to these young men as well?
Yeah. Everybody, there's nobody who does not want to help somebody who wants to help themselves.
Right.
So there's no teachers or people in counseling who are not there to help. So, I just landed a contract where I'm working with elementary kids. And the lady said to me, are you qualified to this? You're overqualified to this. Why are you doing that? And I was like, you know, there are kids out there that needs to hear another voice outside of their parents and their teachers.
Sure.
You know, my parents, as great as they were, it was like go home, do your math homework, and that's it.
Right.
You know, now my son, who's in graduate school, he doesn't do well on a assignment, and he goes back to the teacher or to the TA, and the teacher and the TA tells him where he went wrong.
Right.
And so the conversation need to be had is that the first thing I told him, I said, when I was in school, I never did that.
Right.
And I don't know why I never did that, because I told him at the end of the day, I was ashamed to tell the teacher why I didn't do that.
Right.
So the teacher or the TA, I don't even know what a teacher's assistant is, but that's what you call them, right? Right. The teacher's assistant told him, I said, well, I'm not going to change the grade, but I'm going to tell you, why don't you bring your assignment and I'll tell you if you're going in the right direction or not. Okay. And so that is the crux of learning, and that is the crux of self-confidence of our young men and young women. And we were taught to be dumb and says, oh, you're stupid because you didn't know. Right. And you really don't know. You just don't know.
Well, that reminds me of a professor I had that expressed all the time that there was no achievement gap between blacks and whites because we don't have the information they have. So you can't really compare us. It's apples and oranges. And if we had the information and the technology and the accessibility to everything that they had, then you could say, okay, there's a gap between these people. But if you gave us what they had, it would show that there's no gap. There would be, there'd be no difference. And I think that you're definitely right. I was in grad school before I even learned to start really talking to my teachers. And it would have to be something real big in college for me to have to talk to a teacher. And even then, I was still scared to do that because, like you said, there was a shame of not knowing or not being able to do something. And that hangs heavy on our kids. I try to express to them all the time. When I talk, like I used to talk to your son, I talk to other students. I always tell them, listen, talk to your teacher. If something's going wrong, go tell your teacher. I'm a teacher. I know when somebody comes to me, and sometimes it's BS. Sometimes kids are trying to get over, but that always comes out in the wash. But, when you're a student who comes and talks and communicates what your problems are, teachers are more willing to help than people think. Even the teachers that are mean still have a heart. They're still like, oh, okay, this is going on. Sometimes it's a problem that can be helped. Sometimes it's something you can get around. There's a workaround. There's so many different things that can be done. So, yeah, it's always worth it. Even if the teacher doesn't do what you wanted them to do, it's still worth you letting them know, because some of them will realize later, oh, you know what, I was wrong about you. Let me go ahead and give you a chance to do this because you expressed it to me. So it's a lot,
I
definitely a lot.
always I always use the analogy of New York City, and for your audience who don't know New York City, if I want to go to from Brooklyn to the Bronx, there are many ways to go to the Bronx. I could take the Whitestone Bridge. I could take the Throgs Neck Bridge. I could take the FDR Drive,
Right.
which is no toll. I could take the train. I could take the express bus. There are ways to get there.
Right.
There's not one way to success for our kids. So when I do counseling, and somebody is always somebody that's angry because they have not connected. So
Oh,
you go to church, they do not connect with you. You go to school, they do not connect with you. You go home, and they do not connect you. Some people have two family homes. They have mother and father there. Father
right.
doesn't talk to them. Mother doesn't talk to them. Everybody goes to bed, but they don't. The family doesn't get together, and they don't go out. And if
Right.
they go to church, and they just sit down in church, praise the Lord, and everybody resets.
Right.
That's why family vacations are important.
Right.
You know, or even though if you don't sleep over a friend's house, it's still important to go over to Brian's house and play. Or we're
Right.
going to play basketball.
Right.
Or we're going to do that. It's not homework all the time.
Right.
It's developing your social skills. So all of that is important. And so I've had the opportunity over the last 3 years to talk to kids flat out. And it's not the kids all the time, it's the parents too.
Yeah.
The tremendous um, over the top expectations
Right. Some of
for
them had it on them, so they put it on their
yeah,
kids as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah. It's like my friend Kenny Martin used to say, if you follow an ugly kid home, an ugly parent will open the door. I mean, it's in them. It's not, and it's not even hereditary. It's just the habits are the same, and it just makes it a cycle that needs to be broken. It's really hard sometimes to see it because I'll have a child that's having a lot of difficulty in class or acting out, and I'll call a parent. And when the parent comes in, without even me saying anything, I'm like, that's so and so's parent. Just by the way they're acting in the hall. And I've said that. You're so and so's parent. Like, oh, how did you know? Don't worry about that. Let's just get to what we have to do. But sometimes those actions they're not meant to be put on the kid, but they are. And you see that a lot. So I know that's a big problem. Well, I know that the kids are a big thing for you, but I want to get this out because as a Black man living here in America and in New York, one of the biggest cities in the world, most popular cities in the world. Um, how did you go from whatever you were doing before to owning your own business and being successful? Because that's something that I'm sure the viewers want to hear about. A lot of people are saying, oh, I want to own my own business, or oh, I have my own business. It's just like back in the day when everybody was saying they had a label. Well, you have a name of a label and you might have some business cards, but if you're not really making money, sometimes you don't really have your own, but you're sustaining your family, a son in college, all of that stuff. How did you go from working for people to working for yourself?
man, I was forced to.
Okay.
I had a plan that after I got my PhD or my doctorate, that I will open my own private practice. And um, you know, I got fired, and I got fired, and I got kicked out of school the same day, July 12th, 2019. Right. And I remember now everything is a process. So,
Right.
but that's the day it happened.
Right.
That I found out that it happened. And I was like, wow, I was exhausted. I was mentally exhausted because going to school and work at the same time is really exhausting.
Yes.
Especially in my doctoral work. And it's just funny because I don't know if there's a racial gap or an age gap Like my son tells me at Columbia, everybody uses a laptop. And I remember when I was going to school in my doctoral, everybody was using a laptop. But he's old school and I'm old school. I still write things down on a
Right.
on a notepad,
Yeah, yeah.
and
That's how I
then
gotta do it.
right. And after the notepad, I transfer it into my computer,
Right.
and I type like 12 words a minute
Ah,
still. Yeah. So everything takes me longer
right.
to do. But that day, I remember telling my wife uh, what happened, and she said, "Well, this is the worst day of your life." And she's very compassionate. And I said, "Well, my wife is rarely wrong." So I said, "Nope, this is not the worst day of my life." I said, "You're here. Our son is here. My parents are still alive, and my brothers are still alive." And the very next day, I got to work. And I'll tell this story. Uh, I ran into Lovener. Lovener, I forget her last name now.
Walcott. Walcott. Oh,
Yeah,
no. The new last name. Yeah, Loving the
yeah,
Walcott.
she got married.
Right.
So Lovener is a consultant, and she says, "Well, you do this," and I got signed to CompPsych. CompPsych is an EAP where they assign you to people, and that was my first contract
Okay.
with CompPsych. And I tell you, Brian, I really grinded my first 6 months out of the year. I
Okay.
tried to take speaking engagements. I try to do anything just to keep the income going.
Right.
And then the real thing in private practice, I found out that my license was billable. So I have a license of mental health license in New York State, and I found out that insurances will pay you for doing counseling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I set up shop at my churches, one in Brooklyn. I grew up at Bethel Church. I set up shop there,
Okay.
and I set up shop at my church in Harlem. So it was like I had two offices, and then I went on to Psychology Today. I'm just mapping everything out. I paid $29.99.
Yeah.
Took a picture of mine. It's just like LinkedIn. Put my stuff on there, and if you look on there, you see Todd Baker and my man Rye King,
Right.
who actually plays me, right? And then I took a picture of my brothers and all my friends. I'm surprised you're not there. And I gave and I made like these testimonies because
Okay.
I did not want to give any away the real identity of
Right.
the people. And I paid all the people like a couple of $100 or whatever to do it. And my site, they go through it and then through the database. If you say we're looking for a African American man, Harlem or New York, my name will pop up.
Okay.
So for $29.95, it's the best investment I made. 300 something like $20 a year. You the mathematician or
Right.
whatever
Right.
that came up, and so people started coming in, and then I started meeting people. And then when the pandemic came,
Mhm.
it's like a perfect storm. So
Right.
I didn't have to see people. I didn't have to run down to Harlem, and I didn't have to run down to Brooklyn anymore. We were doing what we're doing right now,
Wow.
and then that's when it really accelerated. So I've always been a good businessman because I was a promoter, and
Yeah.
then I had to learn on the fly what happened. And I remember getting my first check. I used to wait in the mail. Then I went to electronic funds transfer, and
EFT. That's right. That's right.
right, right, the EFT. But to be really happening is all of this came together this summer. All this success came together little by little.
Right.
So a lot of people don't understand, um, a and I'm not discouraging, but the 9 to 5 job kept my time and my money. No
Right.
matter how many people I seen, I was never compensated for the amount of money I made.
Right.
Okay. And so when I started making money, I had to pay back all the money I owe for the 15 years of hustling that I did.
Right.
And so, but this summer, when I went to Dubai, I realized, and it wasn't only money. We went to Dubai, and I had a recruiter call me from India,
Mm.
and that recruiter gave me like a lucrative deal. But
Wow.
I said, well, look at this funny because, and out of the lucrative deal, the thing that I walked away with the most is that me and her were talking on the same time zone
Right.
because I was in the UAE and she was in India.
Right.
And so uh, I cut the deal there in India. And I said, when I get to the US, we'll finish the deal. And so that deal has come together. That was one of the most successful things that happened to me, the little thing. And when I went to Jamaica, wish I promised my wife when I got married that every year we go on vacation. And then so that last year when the pandemic, we went to Jamaica, and I had like two presentations, kind of like what we're doing now.
Right.
So I had to kind of like ask Tony and Nilsa for permission. And while they went to dinner, I did I did that, and I got paid a good amount of money for doing the interview. And so we balance what we do
Right.
because when you're an entrepreneur and when you have your own business, you you get money, but you don't lose. You really you get to control your time.
Right.
So for those out there, uh, you're really one step away or two step away. You know, you used to listen to the radio or whatever, and you've seen it. You're like one or two steps away from getting it. But
Right.
make no doubt about it. The fact that I am a black male therapist
Right.
really drives. Like, big shout out to my boy Terry Parks and Phil Wesley, who were very instrumental. It's like, man, go ahead.
Right.
What's the worst that can happen? You go back into the job market,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
I
so,
mean, that's. I think your story, and I know that there's a lot more to your beginnings because I know
right,
you've been up and down a bunch of times, and
right, yeah,
I think that a lot of people need to know not that you have to have ups and downs, but that those ups and downs don't take you out of the game. You know what
hmm
I'm saying? It's not three strikes you're out. Because
no,
if that's the case, we'd have both been out, and we
yeah,
both love baseball, so we
yeah,
know that's not a comparison for our lives. And
hmm
on top of that, there's a lot that we have in common. We've both done a lot of small jobs that have nothing to do with our talent or what we went to school for or anything.
but
And it all comes into play. It all works.
I'll say this: one of my most transitional jobs that I had, and I'll share this with people. You know this, but a lot of people don't know. When I worked for the post office, right? And I'd never realized how I looked down on some people until you
Right.
start doing the work that they do. The post office is probably the most amazing. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Business.
Right.
It's a simple thing. And I remember going to the post office. They said we do only do one thing: we move mail. Nothing else.
Right.
Nothing else. And I remember working overnight at the post office, and they had these bins and they had these numbers, and you move what you got into those bins, and they just go on. And this goes on all night. We were like ants,
Right.
and people were able to send their kids to college. People were um, able to buy homes and
Right.
live a regular life. And the
Right.
best thing about the post office, working behind the scene, you didn't have to dress up.
No.
Those are for the mail carriers. One of the one of the best life lessons that I learned is at the post office.
Well, my dad worked there for years, the
Mhm.
big one, right across the street from Madison Square Garden, and so that I know that people can do it because that's what fed us, almost our whole life. So it was never an issue. But you're right. I mean, a lot of people look at the post office as just a low job and stuff, but somebody has to do the mail, and if they weren't doing it, it'd be a problem. It's not like today where you're sending emails all the time. Back in the day, I mean, there was none of that, and the post
I'm
office was doing it all.
what? It's amazing, even in this electronic driven world, the amount of parcels that
Right.
comes through in the post. And,
Yeah.
and there's something still great about this. And this is a business tip I'm gonna tell everybody. You want to make inroads on your business, go buy a card and write on the card and say, "Thank you, Brian," and mail it, because good news doesn't come in the mail anymore.
That's right. Right.
Amazon is one thing; those are packages, right?
Right.
That's kind of like everybody likes, you know, a card saying "What's up." You could drop a gift card. You could drop 100 in there, or
Right.
50 for some gas. It will be like, it'll be one of the best things you do for Christmas. Not a Christmas card only, a
Right.
handwritten card.
Right.
So
I feel you. That's
yeah.
right. That's true. I had a friend do that when I was down one time. She mailed me 2 gas cards, and I still haven't forgotten. It's been 12 years maybe, but that's a big thing. And I filled my tank up. I was proud and happy. And you're right. A lot doesn't come in the mail. All I get in the mail now is bills and junk. So when something nice comes, it's very exciting. So you're right. Definitely right about that. So tell me, after all that you've done in your years on this earth to get to the point that you are, what would be the top 3 things that you've learned that you express to these young boys that you counsel? 3 things that just you want to make sure they get if they don't get nothing else.
Oh, number one, everybody you see on TV uh, worked for it. Everybody you see on TV.
Okay.
You look on the Today Show or something. They got to get up like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
to get on it. There's some burden for everything. So you think that you see those basketball players, they spend countless hours
Right.
practicing. You think it's like when I see some kids at church, like, oh, I want to be a basketball player or a baseball player. I said, if you really were serious about it, you wouldn't be here at church.
Yeah.
Because right now it's a Saturday or it's Sunday, and what they're doing is that they're either traveling or they're in some tournament, or
Right.
they're working out. So
Right.
so there's this fantasy that when you make it on TV, that there's no hard work for it. Even the people you see on BET or whatever, they're in the studio all night. That
Right.
stuff is grinding, brother.
Yeah.
And people who pay you to be a multimillionaire, you have to answer to that and those deadlines or what have you. So what you see on TV is not a fantasy. Number
Okay.
two, um, whatever you're doing in whether it's school or what have you, uh, you need to be an expert at it. And in order to be an expert at it, you should find an expert to help you. So, um, if you look at my brother's page, he put up a math problem or a
Right.
statistics problem, and he said help,
Right.
and he put dollar signs on it. I thought it was the most ingenious thing, even though I know what's going on in his life. He's reaching out for help.
Right.
So you need to find somebody who's an expert at that. And can I tell you, even if you find somebody, even if you find somebody to do the homework assignment for you,
Right.
to give you a little elbow room so you can kind of say, let me mimic that or see how that is done or how to
Yeah.
whatever. There's a whole process to that. So Tiger Woods has a swing coach. LeBron James, he has a basketball shooting coach. They have people that help you weightlift. That's why we have trainers, and that's why we have people to help you. And the last but not least thing, it's okay to mess up, and it's okay to fail. The best baseball player hits 10 times. You
Wow.
hear somebody hit 300, 314. That's
That's it.
31%.
Right. But that's huge.
Right. 7 times. That means 7 times that person has failed
Right.
to get there. And that person is seen as successful. So
Right.
you'll never see the failings um, that has happened. You only see the shiny and the bright lights.
Right.
So, and the last thing I would say, I just told you, but last thing, but this came to my head. You should not grudge anybody for how they made it. You don't know how they made it. You don't know how many cars they slept on. You don't know if they were homeless. You don't
Right.
know how many fights that person has had. You don't know what it has been done. Nobody owes you anything. It
Mhm.
really don't. You really have to find it within yourself and say, I remember this feeling when this bill wasn't paid. I remember this feeling when I asked to borrow money and I seen that person to take that money and give it to somebody else, and I had to do it on my own.
Right.
I had to stay. I had to take somewhat simple, like instead of going straight to California to Los Angeles, I had to stop off in St. Louis and sleep there for 6 hours so I could get a cheaper flight to go
Right.
to Los Angeles to get where all that is in the mix.
Right. And listen, I'm gonna tell you, those stories make great testimonies and great encouragement for other people. And when I used to work all these penny ante jobs when I
Mhm.
was in Huntsville working for temp agencies and doing all these things, I used to call and tell my mom, and she said, "Man, you have worked some of the craziest jobs I ever heard of." But she said, one day all of those things are going to come together and you're going to use all of that stuff for something. And when I started speaking, I realized that she was right. I mean, because there's nothing like having stories when you're a public speaker.
Right.
And people are interested, people get pulled in, people start to realize, oh, this guy isn't somebody big, he's one of us, he's a regular Joe and I can relate to him. And so it really helps to have those things in my background. Some of them are kind of humorous, but it really made it big for me. So I think that what you're saying is very important. I think a lot of people need to take heed of that. I hope the viewers are definitely paying attention to all of that. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us today. If people want to get in touch with you for public speaking at their church, at their school, or they want to, use you as a counselor for their kids, how can people get in touch with you?
Man, the best place, and I'm gonna give an endorsement for. You could get me on LinkedIn. Forget the IG. Forget Facebook. That's for all of us to hang out and joke around. Go to LinkedIn. Look for Garry Graham and look me up there. Um, and I'm gonna give you some advice. Anybody, if you want to move your career, get yourself a LinkedIn page.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and the recruiters will find you, and you will get your expertise. So Garry Graham, 2 R's. Even if you were 1 R, you'll see it. You'll see myself on there, and you message me, and I'll be more than happy to either do counseling for you or I'll do some consulting for you. And I still do speak a bit, so that's fine. And then Psychology Today is the same thing. Those are the two places you can find me.
all right. Well, Gary, thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally could get together.
Hey, yeah, man. Listen, I mean, it takes a while sometimes, but I've always seen people interview people that they know, and I'm like, how do all these guys know each other? But it seems like it's happening to us in our old age now too.
But so funny, Watts, is that as good friends as we are, we'll find anything else to do. Like, all right, I'm coming to DC, Maryland. Let's go to a diner, and we
Yeah,
never get a chance to. We'll we'll
that's true.
we'll
That's
find out.
true.
We'll you know. And I'm just saying this to be some transparency, let people know what really happens. A lot of people know each other, but then we'll get up at the last minute. It's like, you'll meet me in Florida, and
Right.
we'll go.
Right.
Right? But to get an interview, I don't know why it took so long. And I'll say more is my fault. I apologize. I've gotten busy,
Uh,
so
Listen,
I
no
did.
problem. It was worth it. It's worth it. Definitely worth it. Well, look, say
All
hello to
right,
the family and take
I
it easy.
will.
Hopefully, the viewers will get in touch with you and get some more work for you, and so you can continue to expand in your business and be a blessing to all those that you come in contact with.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. We'll get with
Okay,
you soon. Take it easy.
okay.
Hello, my name is Desiree Gunn Price. Most people just know me as Desiree Gunn. And I love Black men. First off, let me just say I come from a multicultural background, so I appreciate all men. But I have the opportunity to know the real difference between what it is to be a man in the Black culture versus in a Caucasian culture within my family. So I love Black men because Black men automatically, by birth, are born into a stereotype within um, society. And at some point, all of them experience racism and discrimination. And regardless of that experience, our Black men don't allow those experiences to um, shatter their dreams and discourage their goals. They actually use that to find strength and courage within themselves to love us more harder, more deeper, to love life, and to push through to prove to themselves and to the world that they're worth something. Um, you know, I love all of my family, all the men in my family who are all races, and I'm a very diverse family. But those men in our family who are not Black have not experienced that. And when you've been given something on a silver spoon and not had to experience the world being against you just because of the color of your skin, it's a different journey. And having to find that joy and that love and not put that frustration out on other people. And I appreciate the Black men learning how to love us Black women through that and love their families and encourage their families regardless of the struggle and use that struggle to be successful in life and to also encourage other Black men that not to allow the struggle to deter them and to find strength in that struggle, to know that they're phenomenal because they show a strength that many other people cannot show because it does not um, offset or influence the outcome of their lives. And so that's why I love my Black man. It's because of his strength and his love through the strength that other people do not have.
Viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Garry Graham. Please get in touch with him if you need his services and let him know that you saw him here on Come Together. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Take it easy.